So this video is a real mess, and I've done about 3 cuts of it and haven't released it, which is why you didn't see anything. But a good friend of ours, Trevor Phillips, passed away, and he was sort of a big attendee of our cup parties. We have a Melbourne cup party every year. Trevor loved them apparently, which was a nice thing to hear. Anyway, he got very, very sick, and he lost a battle. It was awful, and so we weren't going to hold it this year. We actually didn't want to hold it this year. Friends told us to hold it anyway, and I'm really glad we did, because his wife Midge turned up, and that was something that everyone was so happy to see. She's had nothing but heartbreak and hard work for the last 18 months, and she said it was the first normal day she'd had, which really meant something. So we had there was a funeral, of course, and a beautiful service. Hard to go to, very hard to sort of, hard not to get emotional, particularly when his children are absolutely lovely. They all spoke for him, and I don't know how they did it, because I know I couldn't say 2 words, but my father died. Well, the middle daughter, Steph, got up and she started talking, and she was having trouble, and I don't think there was a dry set of eyes in the whole place when she started talking. It was really, really hard. Of course, went outside afterwards, and some of them went off to Trevor's footy club, and they released a bunch of balloons in his team colours. We didn't attend that. I think Andy did. Andy from the Ford Forum, SSV Pom. He was there. It was lovely to see him. And it was just such a small world, because nobody expected, or at least I didn't expect to see him there. So it was lovely to see Andy. I always feel a little bit guilty about him too, because he gave me all this stuff for the XC, these lights and everything, and I still haven't used them yet. But rest assured, we will. So this video is a big concoction of pretty much everything. Some cup day preparation, some of Dave's bike, some XL stuff. Our chook shed through the club is closing, because the gentleman there is very ill, and they've got a new chook shed in an undisclosed location for club members to enjoy, and the old one in Warrandyte is closing up. So there's a bunch of stuff I bought that they're throwing away an awful lot of lovely stuff, because the new facility is about 1/4 the size of the old one. So I went in with a couple of $100 and gave it to the club and went shopping. Stuff I don't need, of course, but it will make a good project for a future date. A couple of B series engines, a 1500 and a 1600. We'll come back, we'll paint these, and we'll put new bearings in. Then I can give these to Dave to have the, I've got to get the spokes this week too, and then get the wheels laced. He's got the tyres and the rims. Of course, then we've got to do the forks, put new seals in the forks, and then I can stick the bike on its wheels. No, I can't. I'm lying. I've got to get brake pads, brake linings. So I'm just going to continue with this for a bit. It's very smooth, but it doesn't. Oh, there's a bit of roughness here and there. So I'm just going and cleaning these up, and we'll come back.
Oh, I do enjoy that helium.
Would you like some? I don't know how that works. Is that better? Am I back to normal?
Almost.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Welcome to that. I can't do it. You've got to. Apparently, it's not good for you. If you do it once. You don't do it more than once.
So you're going to do it more than once?
No, I'm not going to, because I should have said, welcome to the 4th chapter on the. So here's a very, very small portion of what I picked up today for $200. There's 2 engines as well, as I said, a 1500 one and a 1600 one. Maybe a 4-speed gearbox as well, a floor shift one. As well as this really cool, I don't even know what that is, a flyer, I guess, for seat covers back in the day. I think that sort of thing is just mental. I love it. Absolutely love it. Also, speaking of great bits and pieces, 1920s jack, and still very operational. I don't know if it's Wolseley. I don't know what mark that is from, but a sensational bit of kit and still very operational. I want to build in my, here's another thing, I've got a whole lot of footage on garage renovation, and that sort of corner over there where the bikes are. You can't see that I've done any work there because it's all covered in crap again. But bull-nose shelving and have lots of sort of articles, bits and pieces on there. Of course, the other thing I got, anyone with a 2480 will know that they have a problem with overheating. This is a 1560 fan, a two-piece one where you can have both sets of blades going on top of one another, depending on conditions. Of course, these are English cars, so a lot of the older English cars only had a double blade like that, or two blades effectively. 2480s, of course, as we said in the MG video, had no aerodynamically flawed blade, and I changed one on my last one for one of these. So, you know, there was that as well as starter motor, rather nice, and an air cleaner. A speedo from a 1560. There was a box of these getting chucked, so I mean that'll look good on a shelf. That's really cool. Love the instrumentation. This thing, and I'd like to thank Andrew Whalen. He is a member. Very a lovely bloke. Very unselfish. You know, he gave this to me. He took it off an engine. He ended up taking off that 1600, which I didn't know was a 1600 before I bought it. And he got this for himself. And this is very rare in that most of these have a felt seal. This has the later type seal, which is much better, easier to deal with. A mangled 2480 heater hose, which I need for one of the curves for the MG's engine breather because I'm not using rubber hose on it. You'll see what I mean later. A Dizzy in pretty good nick. You can get them quite cheap new, but I don't need a new one. Of course, a manifold, a couple of generators with this really lovely coil bracket. Really old fashioned, oh, old school, there it is there. And a couple of cylinder heads. Now these cylinder heads have been pseudo reconditioned in that, here's the 1600 one. Oh crap, everyone, oh, hang on, just let me get organised here. I've got too much junk, you know that. Too much stuff. This one here, been resurfaced. It doesn't look too bad. I think it's been resurfaced, I'm not sure. This one here certainly has. It was sold as a Rico, but it's not. Well, it's not Ricoed very well. It's been, can I get this out? It's been all repainted. Hang on a sec. Just want to pull his pants down a bit. It looks all recoat. It's all been tanked and everything. Right, it looks like it has. Oh, pardon me. And recoat, but the problem with it is, I don't know if you can see from there. Can we see from there? These valves are sunk in. The exhaust ones. The seats have been recut, but they've used a standard valve, so they sit further in, where they haven't had seats put into them, which is bad, because the spring pressure is going to be less and so forth. I got this cheap. It was supposed to be reconditioned. The guy that originally got it done was there, and he said, yeah, it's a reco, cost, oh, he said $700 or something. But if it did cost $700, he got absolutely financially hammered, because it's not worth that, frankly. Hasn't got unleaded seats. It just isn't worth it. But I paid $100 for that head and $100 for the other two engines and everything else, so that's all good. And it's a great little project for later at some point. When I get sick of the cars or whatever, I'm getting back into the swing of doing the cars now because I need to get more work done in the next couple of weeks. I want to get this headlining in the XC. Remains to be seen whether I do, but that is on the agenda. Just going around putting these bearings in. I wanted to do it before I painted this because I don't want to be banging around on these things here with the fresh coat of paint and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, this one's in. Don't forget, you're going to put these little suckers in and then knock the bearing in above that. I almost made a horrendous mistake by doing that. So that goes in, and then we can sort of paint it up. And I haven't got an awful lot of content for you this week. YouTube like you to upload frequently and regularly and all this sort of stuff. Not really that much of a possibility with the stuff I do, because I've either got a lot of content that all comes at once, particularly if I've got some time off and we're not doing much with the kids and so forth, or I've got nothing. I've got a little bit at the moment. Of course, there's the usual tale where I'm waiting on parts. I want to talk to you about the MG's exhaust manifold too, because I've had it ceramic coated and it looks absolutely brilliant. It's something I'm not all that familiar with. Of course, I got that done on the advice from my brother. I'd also like to talk about some of the comments that I receive. I can start with that actually. Gee whiz, I'm not organised. I'm not organised at all. I got some comments. All right, we all get comments. I love comments, and the one thing I love about the comments, I love the positive ones. I mean, we all do. You're doing a great job. We love watching your video. We don't care how long it is. Oh, it just doesn't get better than that. That was my shoe, by the way. The other thing, you do get, I would probably get one bad one. I'm going to say every 6 months. I just don't get them, which is really, really good. Now I've tempted fate. I'm going to get a whole lot of them, I reckon. But one guy called me DH, dickhead, with bothering with the Fairmont, saying it's not a GXL because GXLs are 351s and GXLs are this and I had that. You do get idiots from time to time that really, they're not just uninformed, they're just armchair experts that just feel like taking out their aggression on other people. The best thing to do with that is just click the rubbish bin and just delete the comment. I don't even dignify their remarks with the response. You're bound to get that. A lot of people write comments along a similar vein in the papers when they're reading the columns, and you can comment at the bottom, and they're just silly. Some of them are really stupid, so I don't bother with that. One chap was curious as to why. It wasn't a critical comment. He just said you call wrenches spanners. You know, they're called wrenches. That's a language thing. Americans call them wrenches. We call them spanners. Ring open enders, double ring spanners, whatever you want to call them. It's just a language thing. Tomato, tomato, same sort of deal. And you know, you got to be sort of mindful of that sort of thing too. When I comment on American, I left one on Cold War Motors, and I talked about his trunk lid. And we don't call them trunk lids, called the boot lid. But it's a fantastic channel. You got to watch them. I need one for the Plymouth along the bottom of the trunk, and so I mentioned that. So I mean, I put it into language that's sort of common for them to use, and they're going to know what a boot lid is. But whatever the case, it's all good. What else have I got here? The pressure relief valve. One chappie was concerned that I hadn't put the ball bearing back in the MG's pressure relief valve. This uses a piston, not a ball. There are two types. Physically sighted it before I put the spring in. Sometimes I'll look at things before I turn the camera on, and it looks like I'm maybe being reckless and just banging things together. But I always take good care before I do that. So there's that to sort of think about. The other thing is tips. Now, I love tips. A lot of the time when people offer you tips, it's stuff you already know. But every now and then you get one you think, well, I didn't think of that. Permatex is a great example. It's messy to use. It looks terrible on an engine when it's oozing out because it almost looks like an oil leak. Stephen Garden said, why don't you paint up a sheet of glass and dip the gasket in that and then pull it off and you get a nice even coat. Don't even know why I didn't think of that. It's the same thing I did on the handbrake on the XW. I got a toilet roll, painted some white on it and transferred it onto the embossed writing. It says brake along the handbrake, and it worked a treat. At the time I did that, I thought about doing it on something flat because it would have been easy, just sort of drop it on like a stamp. So those sorts of things, those skills are sort of, well, those tips are transferable to different parts of a car, if you know what I mean. And Permatex being messy, that's a great way to deal with it. The other thing is, he mentioned cotton swabs being better than the big unwieldy brush that comes with the Permatex. And the cotton swabs are good because you can control the Permatex you're putting on the gasket much better. Having said that, you want to use good quality cotton swabs, or cotton buds as we call them here. The cheapy ones from the discount stores are generally wound very loosely, and the last thing you want is cotton wool dragging through Permatex. It's not going to look too good. And also they don't have much product on them anyway. They're kind of scant with the amount of cotton wool. The other thing you mentioned was the needle seat. This little guy here, and it's the needle seat for the MGB. This one's sprung. It's got like a little spring-loaded pin on the top of it. These, he said they're a lot better than the solid ones. We put the solid ones in the carburetors because that's what I had. I bought them a while ago and I had them here. Had I known that, I would have insisted on this type because what he said made absolute sense. They're a shock absorber, and that SUs always work better with the spring-loaded ones than over and above what the solid ones are. So, Stephen, if you see this, I am stoked with the comments. They're absolutely brilliant. Sometimes we have tips. I watch a very good, well-known YouTuber, and he has a very eclectic range of videos he does, normally on lawnmowers and stuff like that. And some of the stuff you see, you just think, wow, man, I would not do it like that. wiring is one of my things where you don't muck around with a very simple wiring loom that's really ratty, it's been messed around with. You heave it out, you just put new stuff in. It's going to be more reliable, it's going to be better every time. So rather than wanting to offend, you know, I kind of stay away from comments like that and use the tips I've got in this sort of forum or channel, whatever you want to call it. Ooh. Private comments, thank you very much for those. People have offered me stuff. I can't, where they end up in the browser bit of YouTube, whatever you want to call it, you can tick them and they will go off to whatever video or wherever they posted the comment to, but sometimes you can't reply to them. It doesn't let you reply to them. And so where it might feel that you're being rude, you don't intend to be, you actually physically can't reply to them, which is pretty much a shame. I'm at a standstill with stuff. I'm still only on this paint gun. Just a sec. Move. Here it is here. This is the old one. And the I've ordered one and it said it was coming from Sydney and I reckon it's coming from China. It's happened before where eBay commercials say, or ads say, location Sydney, Australia, and you click on it because it's local, then you get it 6 weeks later with a China address on it. And that to me is false advertising and dodgy because it slowed me down. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. But having said that, all is good. I haven't got... I haven't really got much else to show you. In this video, there were a few bits and pieces I had in terms of garage resto. Well, it wasn't really, it was just tidying this corner up. Started doing it, but ended up wanting to do a bullnose shelf and not getting around to it yet because I've got Dave's bike here. So I can do that later. I've got footage of it that talks about it being cold and wet, and of course we're heading towards summer now, so I was done a little while ago. But we did have a cup day party, and we have these cup day parties every year. Suzanne always goes to incredible wife. Incredible effort to make these nice cup parties. So there's a bit of footage on setting that up too. I think I'm done. What else have I got? I don't know. I'll bang it all into this video. It's going to be 35-40 minutes and I hope you enjoy it. What have we got? Oh, snail races. Oh,
yeah,
lovely.
this one really short one, and it reminds me of me in my class because I'm the really short one. Yeah.
This is Herbie. Film Herbie.
He's my baby.
That's Herbie.
Yeah, he's like, get away from me.
I don't like Herbie much. I do like him. No, but we like the bigger dogs. Herbie can be a bit yappy and
He
a bit...
can be a white.
Yeah, he... You know, he's not that great. Hang on.
Me too.
Cup of tea, Susie. Don't you know me now?
Do I look ridiculous?
You look beautiful.
I feel like I'm gonna fly away.
That's why I love you so much. I don't know why you stay with me. I always look like crap.
I know. Notice.
Do you like the way I dress normally? No? Yeah, the moment something needs fixing, she never complains. I haven't she heard that? No, she was lovely. That's funny. Anyway, let's go with tea. Yep. Okay, coming. Ah, really?
Yeah.
Which one?
This one.
Yep. My daughter, when she does her hair, she always bloody, she's too rough, she drops them. Hang on, I'm going to stick that in there. Are we sure that's not working? No, it doesn't work. Is that in? Yep, that works. And there we go. She's taking photos too. That's my daughter. And my other daughter's somewhere. I don't know where she went. Yeah, here's my other daughter. That's Rosie
Make
and
another
Alana.
cup of tea.
Yeah, and I'm
Do you want a cup of tea? What's that, sorry?
I'm the star.
The start of the you are indeed.
Happy Melbourne Cup Day. Happy Melbourne.
Melbourne Cup's very special here. We have these parties every year, and we always invite the same people because they're a great bunch of friends and they all get along very, very well.
And also
So-
we have no other friends.
And because we have no other friends, that's
Yeah, we
right.
sort of trap them.
What else we got? Egg. Don't turn your back. Eggs, and I just yum. Ooh. Gotta have banana. Milk bottle. She's filming her father filming.
Dad, is that okay?
What, your friend? Yeah, she's fine.
She's
Oh,
alright, but like, what about that?
splendid.
Is this planted?
Ring the bell. That's from Las Vegas, I think.
I actually really
It
want
says
red
Las
wine.
Vegas on it.
Oh, does it?
Like 6 times.
Yeah, Las
And it was
Vegas, Las Vegas.
$3. Oh, it does.
I'm actually really in the mood for wine. Why are you drinking tea?
I do love the cup, but I love the cars better. Oh, hang on. I got tea and I can't open the door. That is better. This is my little alcove. So the first thing we do before any guests come is we close the door. Right, so let's start talking about the exhaust. This is the muffler that came off, I think, the good bike. It's in very good nick. It looks like it's been brush painted again. We can rub that back and paint it properly. It says XL250 on it, so I'm tipping it's the right one. This was the really bad engine pipe, which has been welded to the point where it's just absolutely misshapen at the top there. And it had cut off collets holding it in. So it would have gone something like that. Something like that. I'm tipping. So that's the only good bit of news I've got. The rest of it's pretty much rubbish. Of course, we've got this, and you've seen this. This had the heat shield on it, which I resurrected very poorly. I had it plated, and I thought it looked better, and it doesn't. It looks worse. It's got a bit of flashing there. This sort of fitted like so. I was in a hurry to get to the platers and tried to straighten it out, and it's terrible. It's better being painted a matte black. I thought it would look a bit better, but I was very doubtful when I did it. We could probably go around and hammer and dolly it a bit more to straighten it. You can see it's still twisted, but it was infinitely more twisted than that when we begun. So it remains to be seen what we do with this. Most likely I'll straighten it a bit more and paint it matte black, and you won't notice any difference. It'll be painted in that exhaust paint. The problem is, though, they've had it. And the donor bike had this engine pipe, which we talked briefly about. Sits like this. The lowest point, of course, is here, and you can see it's all blown out. But this pipe is fairly complete. Now, again, we've got awful welding there. Now, I'm no welder, but I reckon I can do better than that. It's terrible. That we have to take that off. And, of course, here as well, that goes round to the same sort of job. And we've got broken nuts for that heat shield. I'm not even sure they're in the right spot. I'm tipping I'll be right there. Something like that. Wonders never cease. They're actually in the right place. But whatever the case, we can't do anything with it. Now what I hoped I could do was repair this, because we don't want to sort of spend $400 on a new system and end up over capitalizing. If you do this sort of thing and you're mucking around with bikes and cars, whatnot, then you find bits like this are the things that chew into your profit. If you can resurrect junk and make good of it, then you stand to make a bit more money, and also, well, if you want to sell it or save some if you want to keep it. So we've got a problem here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that out. And I'm going to try and weld another piece in. Now initially I thought I haven't got any stock the right size, but we do have some old bent handlebars. And they're not just bent there, they're actually bent at the end there as well. So I thought about docking a bit of that, and then sort of, it won't fit, but I can sort of spread it out a bit and make a patch for there, because I haven't got any sort of hollow round rod here. So I figured I can just use a bit of that. But Whatever the case, we probably can't weld to it anyway, because that being the lowest part, that it's sat on the bike is likely to be really, really thin. Of course, you hit that with a welder, it's just going to blow a hole. So I don't know what to do. I don't know. But I think it's worth having a good earnest go at it and seeing if we can come up with something that's going to work. And not just that, just last a bit longer. So eventually Dave will probably get a new exhaust, but we want to keep the dollars low. And exhausts are something, particularly on a bike like this, where you can do a patch-up job. It'll get you by for now. It'll get it roadworthy, da-da-da-da-da. And then in a few years, if he wants to replace it, then he can. It's very easy to take it off and replace it. But for now, I think we'll have a go at this and see where it leads us. The first order of business is to tape up what we want to cut. Now this, when something rusts, it goes very, very thin, of course, and breaks through. In some instances, it could have a good bit of wall thickness, not too far up, although it does feel swollen there. I'm going to tape up where I want to make the cuts. You don't have to do it this way. I choose to do it this way because it'll give me a more controlled cut. And also, in among all the sparks flying around, it's going to be easier to see. If this works, it'll be a bit of a miracle. But I just think it's worth having a crack at. So I'm going to put a bit in there. And what we're going to have to do when we weld this, we're going to have to bolt it to the old cylinder head, because when we go to weld this, it's going to want to splay and move around and separate in this area here, and they have to be kept completely parallel in order to fit, to remain effective and fit the bike and that sort of thing. So cutting it won't matter too much, it's just welding it back together. We're going to need to do something. So I'm going to try and keep half the pipe. And this area here, we're coming up to a bend, so I'm going to approach that separately. And we'll just see. No harm in trying, eh? Of course, it goes without saying, any job like this where you're going to start cutting, always observe a bit of shop safety and use your safety kit. So, well, let's make a start. Let's see what this is giving us.
Now, I've done a couple pages of...
It's double skinned. Hang on, Charlie. This is double skinned. What the heck? Oh, I didn't expect this. Got this bit here, which is a bit of a worry, where it's blown through, but this is a bit of handlebar we've made a patch with. It's very thick, and I wanted it to sit moderately proud, so that when I weld it, I can grind it off the thick stock. I don't want to take any more off here. Now, the other thing is, it's a little bit ill-fitting, but I reckon I can get away with it. The other thing is this. Now, if I plug weld down, start in the centre and sort of work out, it's likely that as I get to the outside here, it's going to blow out. Now, I don't think, or I'm fairly confident it won't blow far. This is the lowest point of the exhaust unit, but it sort of fits like that, so that's where the moisture gathers underneath there. So, I don't know. I probably should have put a bit of brass stock or something up there and just sort of filled it in to stop it blowing through. I'm going to stick the welder on the lowest setting and just see how I go with that. Right here, I'm just putting my gardening gloves on. I haven't covered any of this up. I don't care if I get weld spatter in the head. This is an old head, it's not much good. I'm going to start with this, see how we go with it. I've got the welder set on the minimum setting. It's going to rock around. Ooh, burnies. That sort of fizzling noise isn't good, but I was expecting it. I've got a hunch I'm going to be chasing this around. So it's a bit rubbish. You can see it's not quite there yet. I've just got to come around the side a bit. It's proved to be a bit more difficult than I thought, just because it's so thin, that outer shear, that outer skin. So I'm just trying and weld this piece in now, see how we go. It's just, it burns really easily on the outside, that's all. And the feet on this welder's playing up too. Oh dear me. So far so good. I don't care how untight it is down here for now, because I can thin this out and shape it a bit better. I just want to hold it there. Rightio, so we can see here it's not too bad. I can fill all this in. and shape it off. I just don't want to thin this stuff out too much more. It's really, really thin. Right, well, I have failed. You can see here, I put the patching. I couldn't really grind back in there too well, but the patch went in alright. But all through here, it was just blowing out. That's all just weld, rub back, weld, rub back, or grind back, I should say. It's paper thin. It's like a Coke can. So it's all affected up through here. It was good there and along the top, but down the bottom it was disastrous. So I think what we'll do is we'll cut it off, and I'll just put a bit of pipe over it and just weld to that weld as best I can. It's not going to look great, but what do? The cover, the heat shield covers that. I can cut that nut off and I can weld one onto there and just limp it around as a thing if another exhaust doesn't show up. But look, I think it's a combination of rust and probably the sandblasting didn't help, but it is, so you can see how rotten that looks. You can't take it back at all. The moment you hit that, it blows out. So that's a disappointment. Painted black, that'll look alright, but I reckon that's going to leak through one of those little pock marks. Don't know. I'm not happy with it though. Pretty much gone, I reckon. So to recap on some XL250 footage, we have tea. First, look at that. The mug's dirty, but we can still drink it. These things are a real piss off because somebody's used a screwdriver. They're actually a dished, sort of half round dished slot, and someone's used a screwdriver. Of course, the screwdriver connects, or at least engages, on the shallowest part of the slot, which stretches aluminium. We're going to have to get a Dremel, I think, tape that off really carefully, and just run along that straight tape line or parallel to it with a Dremel, just to make them look better. I think if we make them the width of a 20-cent coin or something, and just use a sort of a small shifter with a 20-cent coin and tighten them up and loosen them that way, that's going to be the way to go. Pissed off about this really, because, or disappointed I should say, because there's still marks in the paint, which is disappointing. Here's the neutral switch. It has a cap on it, which is held in by this little embossed part here, or at least chiseled, well, what do you call it, that little moulded part there, cast part there, I don't know what you call it. I've got to repaint this, it's rubbish. But that will sit over, well, there's marks on that too. That'll sit over like that, so it's getting there. It's going to look good. Not too phased about that at the moment. Mentioned the gasket, can't do much about that. And of course we've got the seal as well, this new seal. Did I just lean over that? There it is there, and that will go in there where this one was. I've kept the old ones just on the off chance that we need them for sizing later on, or whatever the case. Started roughing in wiring. This is proper Auto Alex tape. These wires are dirty, but it doesn't matter. These two things are coming off. The donor bike has the proper plug there to go into this one here. Where is it? No, it's this one here. That little bloke there. So there's a proper connector that goes drink into there, and it fits in that little, this thing on the other side. This is sort of a clasp that holds all your plugs. So that's all going to be finished, and of course we'll wrap this in some nice new braided, black braided cabling, or cable sheathing if you like. Secure this up per the Honda manual, because we need to make sure we have enough slack there to make sure it doesn't bind when we're steering the bike. So that's all sort of coming along, although as I said we haven't got a head yet, and that's a bit of a pain, but might just cut these off and put a block connector there. It's not original, it's not Honda, but it's going to look better than this crap. The only problem with using a block connector, of course, is you have your indicator wires coming in as well, which go into the block, which means eventually if they have to come off, they need to be cut and then reconnected. But honestly, it's the best thing I can think of for now, and so that's basically where we are with the bike. We haven't really done an awful lot with it. Did start pulling the forks apart. Under there, I think it's a 6mm Allen hex head thing. Got to take that off. These stanchions are in good nick, so we're going to reuse the stanchions. Of course, those springs just pull straight out. There's a second spring underneath, apparently. Got the new seals, I can start doing that. And that is it for the Honda at the moment. MGB. So we've got the carburetors back together. I filmed, I think in the last chapter, putting one together, and again people have said to me, why aren't you doing them up? Why aren't you replating this stuff? It'd look a lot better. And they're right. They're 100% right. I'm not doing it because I don't want to at the moment. The thing ran well. And the MG engine, pulling it apart and all that, that actually wasn't planned. None of that was planned. I've just sort of slotted it in. And it's cost the XC good time. So we've got our linkages loosely back together. Once this is on its backing plate and all the springs are holding the throttle and everything shut, then I can just sort of put these on. These aren't tight. They're sort of, well, they're not very tight. And I can sort of reset all that and make it look good. But they're the linkages. They sort of fit in between. The throttle one goes there. Goes something like that. So they sort of fit between, and of course there's a choke one there as well, and the fuel line T-junction thing that goes at the front. A fella asked me if I'd polished these or I didn't polish them or what. I polished these years ago. I took them off, took them to work, hit them on a buff. They're not, you can colour sand these down to get rid of all the imperfections. I didn't bother, I just polished them yonks ago. And of course the engine didn't look that good and these things stood out, so now they probably look fairly poor on this nice new engine, nice new, newly painted engine we've got. So that's where I am with those. Goodness me, I'm getting a sore back. Still drinking my tea. The other thing is these. They almost look plastic, don't they? This is ceramic coating. Now, brother advised me to do ceramic coating, and I've done it. He advised me to do the grey. Now, there's three colours. This is the aluminium. There's a grey, which is a dark grey, like a battleship grey, and there's which pales off to sort of a pale battleship grey, I suppose. And there's black. Now, I should have done them in the grey, and I didn't. I went against his advice and did them in the aluminium. Now, the aluminium's not as tough as the grey or the black. There's a coating, this is all done through HPC. I think it's high performance coatings. This is good for 700 degrees Celsius. And there's a fly around my head, which is annoying me. Go away. It's like that dot thing I couldn't get rid of. These are good for 700 degrees Celsius. Of course, the grey and the black go higher. There's one for a turbocharger. A coating you can get for turbochargers, it goes up to 1300 degrees. Now, the impressive part about this was all media blasted and etched by the guy who does the rest of my media blasting, and he did a sterling job. They actually have to redo it because it's done inside as well. All inside here is just as smooth as the outside. And I've got it sort of mocked up there just to sort of sit there off the ground, if you know what I mean. So I'll take it off in the next MG video and you'll see what I mean. It's just as clean inside all the runners as it is on the outside. It's a gorgeous bit of work. Not cheap. Postage and the job itself is $207. So it isn't a cheap way to go, but it will maintain, pardon me, it might get a bit of colour shift on it, but it will maintain that sort of finish. Now, the shameful part about this is these are like headers, these things on these MG engines. They're actually a dual header pipe that come out and then join into one down underneath the car. You can get extractors for them, but they're sort of plumbed in the same way as this, so I don't know the advantage of doing that, but I love the look of this, and it's a pity because that big plate where the heat shield, where the carburetors mount, actually covers most of it up. You only ever sort of end up seeing the bottom underneath, and just that front bit of that leg, the rest of it's all sort of covered, so bit of a shame. Not the colour I would get if I was going to do this job again, but I am very happy with them. Just regret not doing the XC and the XW, because now they're on the cars, I'm not going to take them off. So there's that as well. So, while we're on the subject of the MG, here's the sump. This is the one I didn't want to use because it's been really whacked in the bottom. That isn't a big deal. Again, I had some great advice. Stick it in a press, just 2 bits of steel and flatten it. I know you can do things like that. It was just the overall finish on it which I hated. And that's not paint. That's actually in the metal. So I'm tipping parts of this are very, very thin. I didn't want to use this pan. I mean, look at that. It looks rubbish. So I got this one from my beloved Wolseley Car Club. Lovely bunch of guys. Of course, this is, it looks rusty. You can leave vinegar in here. If you watch Retro Restore, a UK guy, he bought some white vinegar and dropped bolts in. A week later he pulls them out and they're like new. That's a sort of a known thing with vinegar. You could fill it up with vinegar, leave it for a week, strain it off and whatever and reuse it. And it would clean all this up beautifully. And the other good thing about this is it's very straight. It's actually a really good one. The only thing is it won't fit. And Peter Reed from the club advised me that 3 and 5 bearing ones are different, which I sort of was fearful of. This is a 3 bearing pan. This is, of course, is a 5 bearing engine. You can see there's bits and pieces that are different on it here. Some of the holes don't marry up. It's a little bit wider down in the bottom section, and so of course that won't fit, which I'm bummed about. I really wanted to use it. Now you could take these bits off if you were keen, but it is a different shape at the front in this area here. That part there, there's a sort of an embossed part of it which isn't going to lend itself well to modification, just in that area there, so we're buggered really. We have to use the old one. But the only thing else on the MG I can talk about or comment on is of course this. I can't put that back on the way it is now. It does have to be, what do you call it, hydro blasted. Now I was going to take the CB750 cylinder head there and do them at the same time, and the barrels and so forth. Financially strapped, had a few regos and stuff to pay, so we're not doing that at the moment, but I can take that down and get it done. It would be, you could rattle can it silver, but it's only going to peel, so it really does need to be media blasted. I might, when it comes back, they'll be lovely in brass, those nice brass. I might just blow a bit of clear on just so they retain their luster, but I've also been sort of finding out which plugs go where, that sort of thing. Need to get some copper washers, that one's a bit ill-fitting, so that's the other stuff I've been doing as well. But aside from that, that's pretty much it that I can talk about. I thought I'd done, the weather's been rubbish lately, and I'm still waiting on parts for Dave's motorbike. All the fasteners and everything aren't there, or haven't turned up yet. So yesterday I was particularly frustrated and I wanted to do something, so I thought I'd redo this garage now, or this corner of the garage, and I thought I'd put in a few bits of this is a packing, hang on a sec. It's a packing sheet I got for $3, and I ran out, so I've done that nice trendy curve, which probably looks a bit rubbish, but once it's all sort of dressed, it'll look nice, you know. But I sort of had all these materials. This paint is a colour called Dulux Autumn Leaves Half Strength, and I bought it for the house. I painted the house 15 years ago. I got sample pots and all looked good, and then got 15 litres or whatever this is, painted the whole outside wall and decided, well, Susie and I decided we didn't like it. So I've had this paint left over as I've used it in here. And I even painted half a classroom at work with it. So got this packing sheet for $3. The benches I've redone. That's a bit of yellow tongue flooring, which I'm going to clear. And just want the place looking a bit more presentable. It looked trashy for so long, and I'm always working in a mess. And I thought, you know what? To work in it'll look nicer. How do you know I'm a mechanic? Because I'm using a metalworking hammer to put brads in. I've got a brad nailer. I left it at work. The guy at work needed to use it, and I left it there, which is a pain in the bum. Yeah, so you can just go around and go bang, 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 and you're done. It was a little cheap one, but it's a cracker. It means we don't care if it's a bit dodgy. There's a dunny budgie hanging around in here. I might get some fly spray. This is cover strap. It's the cheap, filthy stuff. This is essentially just the offcuts that have been finger jointed together. Now, cover strap by itself is around, what was it, $10 for, I think, 2.4 meters of clean stuff. When you get it finger jointed like that, it works out, I think it's about $4 for 3 meters, or maybe it's $5 for 3 meters. It's really, really cheap. Now, that'd be good in an application where you paint it because you don't see the finger joints in it. You can see the edges of them there. I don't care. This is a garage. It's a cheap gig. And I just don't care. So I think it's going to be fine for our purposes. Again, this is a great time because we're using miter joints. It's a great time to use a nail gun, like a little brad nailer. I'm just not going to put it around the joints. Look at that, isn't it sweet? Once that's cleared, it's going to look lovely. Pine has a way of going a honey colour, so I'm not going to fill that or anything. By the time this is all sort of stocked up with tools and everything, you'll never see any of that stuff. And of course the shells will detract from some of my dodgy carpentry. But I mean, I'm not putting any real effort into it. The birds have started. I've got to put some of this down. It's CFP floor clear. We'll have a crack at it now. I'm using this old mangy brush. It's had it. but I don't want to buy another brush, and we want to do this as cheap as possible. The other thing with this is once we've got the first coat down, it's going to take a while to dry, so I'll just wrap that up in a plastic bag and stick it in the fridge. I'm not going to waste terps on it, and we'll just chuck it out when we're finished. It looks good cleared, I reckon. But the main thing with this is just to seal it. So any oil, anything we drop on, we'll just wipe off, you know. The other piece I had for when I did the CB750 bottom end, of course, oil went everywhere. So I'm sort of keen to get this done as soon as I can because I need to reuse this bench. And it's going to look nice, but I'll tell you now, by the second or third video after this will be covered in crap again. Just because I'm a bit of an untidy worker. One final thing, I'll just give it a brush off, just so I know I haven't missed anything. So I've got crap all over the floor now. There's 2 trestle tables loaded to the hilt with rubbish as well. Got to sort out what I want to keep, got to sort out what I'm going to throw out. This isn't complete. I've got to put 3 cleats up for some shelves. I want the rounded bullnose shelves with the pole going through them, with a bit of dowel going through them. I think that looks really good. And I'll put some nice period stuff up there and hang some tools. I've got to put some tools back on this one here too. So anyway, look, this is something a bit different. I don't normally do stuff like this. It's cheap and it's rough. So here's a picture before we did our repair work. And of course here is a picture of afterwards, which as you can see isn't much different because there's so much mess around. But anyway, look, that's all I've got time for. It's a very, very long video at 46 odd minutes. So take care of yourselves, drive safely, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.